because we wanted to show you the construction office for this project. We have more than 50 people who work in these two buildings overseeing and inspecting this project. Secondly, I want to apologize on behalf of the Department of Transportation for the inconvenience that the traveling public is experiencing during this period of time. We obviously had a construction delay, and in just a moment I'm going to turn the podium over to DeJarvis Leonard, who is the East Region Engineer for ALDOT, who will explain further that delay. But my role here today is to let you know that we are concerned about the delay to the public. We have been working as diligently and as hard as we could to get the situation in hand so that we can get the road reopened. And with that, I'll turn the podium over to Mr. Leonard. Thank you. My name is John, John, Cooper, Cooper, and I'm Director of the Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon. My goal is to share with you the events that have occurred in the last few days. On Wednesday, April the 4th, in that night, the contractor was closing the road, and he had it closed to set girders. That girder slipped or shifted, and when it shifted, we kept the road closed in order to make sure that the traveling public was safe. And not only the traveling public, most of all the workers and our inspectors who were out there working. Our first goal was to stabilize the bridge, or the girder. And we were trying to stabilize that. That was our first order of business. And after stabilizing the girder, we put together a plan to get the girder back in its permanent location. After getting the plan together, the state bridge engineer approved the plan. And this plan had to bring in some specialized equipment, and that equipment came in over the weekend. And on yesterday evening, about 6 o'clock, the contractor started to execute that plan. And by doing so, he was able to get the girders back in its proper position, which also allowed us to move forward with the installation of some other girders that needed to be erected in that area. In order to do that, we were able to eliminate closing the road further on other days to set individual girders. We were able to set the additional 3 girders that needed to be put in place. Keep in mind, after the completion of this plan, the girders are in their permanent supports. They are not on temporary supports. At no time is the integrity of the bridges in question. This safety issue that occurred during construction, not part of our permanent installation of our bridges. Our goal is to have the bridge open, or the roadway open, by Wednesday night, so when rush hour starts on Thursday morning, motorists will be back in their normal patterns. If that changes in any manner, we will be glad to keep you notified of any changes. I am very proud of the ALDOT staff and our inspectors and the contractors who have worked tirelessly around the clock since 11 o'clock on Wednesday. I was on the scene at 3 o'clock Thursday morning and have continuously monitored the work personally throughout this event. Our goal is to always make sure that the motorists are safe and that the traveling public is never in any danger, and they were not as a part of this event. And with that, we'll take any questions that you have about the incident.
Sure. Can you say what it was that caused that? We were told that there was a support structure, a support tower that failed. Do you still yet know what it was that caused that to fail?
We do not know what caused. It was a temporary support. It was not a permanent support. It's a steel girder, and the steel girder requires splicing. And before you can splice, you place part of the girder on a temporary support in order to make that splice. And the temporary support is what failed, but we do not know exactly what caused that failure.
Does it concern you at all that the contractor yourself can't say a week later what happened in terms of how this moved? You said it's a failure for that temporary support, but you don't know how it failed, right?
Well, our goal number one has been to make sure that everything was stabilized so we could go back to work on getting everything in the proper position. We have workers who are under there, and we wanted to make sure they were safe. And so our focus has not been on that temporary support, but making sure that everything else is stabilized and to get the girders in its permanent location.
What impact does this have on the overall project? Is it still on schedule as of right now? Not construction.
Well, this is phase 2 of the overall project, and it should not affect the overall schedule. If we've only lost a couple of days, and there's other work that's been ongoing in some areas also while this work was ongoing.
Travis, why don't we know what went wrong?
It hasn't been our focus. Our focus is to stabilize the bridge and the girder that's shifted.
But in order
Our goal.
you have to know
But-
in order to fix something, don't you have to know?
It was a temporary support. It is not part of the permanent structure. So it is not our focus at this point in time.
You had mentioned in a release that you guys had said you were very disappointed in Granite Construction on how this had happened. Do you still have faith in them that they can continue this job and continue to work on it moving forward?
We are, and we do have confidence. Our goal, our disappointment was not so much in the work that they have accomplished at this time. Our disappointment is that it's taken so long for us to get to the point of opening the road back. And that is a disappointment that all the motorists throughout the city have, not only us.
Was the wait again of cranes that you said you had to come this weekend, is that the reason why you pushed back? 'Cause remember you had said initially it's going to be Friday, I believe, and then Sunday, and now Wednesday, hopefully. What was the exact reason? Was it the cranes that you had mentioned?
Well, in planning, there was things that were put in place that we thought we could move forward with, and the decision was not to go forward because of safety reasons, and so we sought additional equipment to make sure that we were safe in moving forward.
Where does the blame lie here? ALDOT with the contractor with both?
Will you repeat that? I couldn't hear the first part.
Where exactly does the blame lie? ALDOT, contractor, both?
Well, I think the idea is that once we're complete and get everything back in place, a forensics review of the situation will take place, and at that time, whatever blame is acquired will be placed where it needs to be.
Are they being fined?
How you approach, how you guys do, how you guys can take a look at what you guys are doing and change anything on these installations?
Well, temporary supports will be reviewed, and they are reviewed, and we will take a closer look at those going forward.
When this slippage happened, were there cars passing under the interstate?
You know, as I stated in my original statement, the road was closed during the installation of the girder, so the traveling public never was in any danger.
We were told Granite was going to have a spokesperson out here today.
I think on their release they said they would not have any spokesperson available. I think that's the release they gave you yesterday.
Is the company still being fined at this point in connection with the road closure?
They are being penalized as a part of our contract. We have in place that if they have road closures, which is part of the interstate, one of those major roads, then there is a penalty for that purpose and it's based on an hourly rate, based on the volumes of the road.
Based off this experience, would you be comfortable working with Granite Construction again on any other state projects?
I would. They have engineers and workers who can perform the work in an adequate manner.
What reassurance can you give the drivers that because of these hefty fines, some might worry that this could be a rush job? Is there going to be extra scrutiny made when analyzing the work they're doing
Well, I think Mr. Cooper addressed that early in his statement, where he said that we have over 50 inspectors who are out there, and they're monitoring this work. And if there's any issues, we won't hesitate to shut the contractor down, and make sure that they do it correctly.
With the slippage of the temporary support structure, from an engineer's perspective, what could have happened in that situation? You said it shifted a little. What was your concern in that moment?
I wasn't there, so I don't have firsthand knowledge of what happened. And as I mentioned, a review of the process will take place once we have gotten everything in place.
Is it possible that steel beam could have fallen down onto the interstate? I know you said there were no cars there, but was that what was possible with that support system having failed?
That possibility was there, and that's why we took the steps to make sure that we didn't open it up even after we had it stabilized, because we didn't want any catastrophic event to occur.
I know you said that you have fines, but there's also incentives in place, right? If these companies were to get done ahead of time, is that correct?
There is an incentive on this project. That is correct.
Is there ever any safety concerns because that they might be going too quickly because of the incentives to try to get this done?
As I mentioned, our inspectors, their job is to monitor and to make sure that we maintain the safety of everything that's going on the project.
With the fine, that when it's issued, how is that done? Is that something that is taken off the top of the contract? How is that fine issued, I guess?
Well, the contractor had a line item in their contract where they bid so much funds of money for that item, and as they are penalized for closing the road, then that will be taken away, and they will not be paid for that pay item. I couldn't hear.
Is this the last time you expect to have an emergency closure like this?
We don't anticipate emergency closures, but we make sure we are adequately prepared to deal with any issue that comes up.
What's the last week been like for you?
Lack of sleep. I came up Saturday afternoon, anticipating we would hopefully be able to move forward, and we wasn't able to move forward at that time, and I was there all night, and I went home Sunday evening about 7 o'clock.
Are there any additional planned road or lane closures associated with the project moving forward?
Sure, there are lane closures continuously throughout this project, and our public information officer send those alerts to you, so you are made aware of any closure that we have constantly. We try very hard to make any major closures during the night, and that's why we set the contract up where those penalties are in the daytime while we have high volumes, to encourage the contractor to do that work at night.
One of those closures was I-65, those southbound lanes overnight. We had to do that, I think, Sunday night into Monday. You told me that could be possible that could happen again. Is that now, has that changed, or do you anticipate having to do that again overnight in the next 2 nights at all?
Not for this incident, or not for this event. We did have to close it for a short period of time yesterday afternoon while we were starting the process to support the girders. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming, and we're always available to answer any question at any time.